Yes, Madam Chair. Rabbi Cohen? Rabbi Cohen?
She is not on. That's who we're missing.
Okay. Dr. Downey?
Here, good evening.
Good
Good
evening.
evening. Ms. Holland?
Here.
Reverend Lee?
Here.
Ms. Penn?
Here.
Mr.
Present.
Rhodes?
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Good evening. Mr. Watson?
Present.
I'm here, and Vice Mayor
I
Whiteboard.
am here, and we have a quorum. Thank you so much, Mr. Secretary, for calling the roll. We did send out our meetings electronically. Hopefully you have received them and you read them, and we are going to ask for a motion to approve them.
So moved. Peter Watson.
Second, Batiste Holland.
Are there any questions or any corrections to those minutes? So the minutes have been approved for the January 7 meeting. Item number 3, we will have new business. And the new business for this meeting is the formation of our subcommittees. And the executive committee met last week sometime. Rabbi Cohen and Mr. Bestpitch, we met and put together the subcommittees based on your interest. And what we came up with is 5 categories based on the interwoven equity. And I was talking to Mr. Cowell, and he reminded me that we definitely had to tie it back in to the work that had already been done on the interwoven equity. So we had 5 categories, and we asked for your input. Now, we did get some input, but we didn't get input from everyone. So if you are not satisfied or would like to be someplace else, we're flexible, so it's not a problem. But let me just tell you what we have. So for trust, we have Dr. Downey, and for also Batiste, you're on that, because you actually, I think you two actually asked for that, and I will join you on that committee. The next subcommittee is Break the Cycle of Poverty, and we will have Rabbi Cohen, Mr. Rhodes, and Mr. Bestpitch. The Inclusive Culture, we have Peter Watson and Rabbi Cohen. And for Neighborhood Choice, we have Dr. Bill Lee, Ms. Penn, and Mr. Bestpitch. And for Service Delivery, we have again Ms. Penn, Dr. Lee, and me. So this is how it's set up right now. And Ms. Holland, I know you're on one right now, and I don't know if you are interested in another one. Did you think of something else that you might want to be on another committee, or you're okay where you are with trust?
I'm fine on trust, but I also put a second choice, which I think was diversity and inclusion.
And so it would be inclusive culture. Do you want to go
Inclusive
there?
culture,
You want
yes,
to go
that's what it
there?
was.
Because they don't have but 2, so that would be perfect.
That's fine.
Okay. Mr. Bestpitch, did you
Yes,
get
ma'am, I
that for
have.
your minutes? Okay. So does anyone else have any questions about their subcommittee? Okay, that's awesome. So in our executive committee meeting, we talked about the size of the subcommittees, because if they get too big, then they're hard to manage, and everybody has an opinion or thought, and that the meetings could go on forever. So we came up with the number of 7. And if you all are in agreement to that, I think that would be a good number for the subcommittees. And we will start working on pulling those together. Now, certainly if you know someone personally that you think would be a good partner or someone to work with in these subcommittees, we certainly will encourage that, but we don't want it to be totally, controlled by this committee. So we are going to open it up. And I think, Mr. Cowell, you were going to put that on our website and our social media pages so that we can reach out to other people. Okay, so we will do that as well. But certainly if you can think of someone, you say, hey, this person would be absolutely dynamic, we are receptive to that. That would really be helpful, but it won't be just this committee making the decisions. We will certainly open it up, because I have gotten so many calls already about people wanting to participate. They saw the first meeting and they're probably watching this meeting. And there are a lot of people who have some ideas and who can contribute to what we're doing here. So that's the way we're going to handle that. And if you want me to send you all out copies of the subcommittees, then I can do that. I don't know if we've done that already. Have we done that already, Mr. Kyle? Did that go out?
Yes, so everyone has received a copy of those. You know, we'll amend it to include Ms. Holland on the inclusive culture. And then
Culture.
I was also, probably you all need to decide if, do you want to try, because whatever other names that you solicit for membership on the committees, you'll actually need to take action similar to what you're doing today to actually add them to that committee. Do you want to try to do that as a part of your March meeting? Is that kind of the timeframe?
I would like to do it in March because, you know, we're going to have, I think our public hearing also is in March. And
Right.
after the March meeting and the public hearing, we're going to be ready to go to work. And
well then
it would be excellent to have the committees in place.
So one of the follow-up items we'll do after this meeting will be that we'll send out the revised list. We will also kind of establish, after I'll speak with you, Ms. White Boyd, on a kind of a time frame, but we'll ask you all for possible names, but there'll be a date by which we need to receive those. And when we put the information out publicly, we'll do the same thing. Say we're soliciting names by that date. We'll probably make it so that it's about, you know, maybe a week before the next meeting. So it gives the executive committee a chance to review those names that come in and prepare a recommendation.
Okay. So we're all in agreement on the subcommittees. Nobody, actually no one has objected. Ms. Holland just wanted to be added, which was a good thing. Mr. Spencer, do we have to do anything with that as far as a vote, or do we have the capability of forming our own subcommittees?
It's always nice if you just go ahead and take a vote and then there's a record.
Okay. Okay, that's fine. So I would ask for a motion then to establish the subcommittees as they are and follow up by a second.
Madam Chair, this is Elda Sankodeani. I move so to have these committees formed as they have been presented.
I second it.
So we have a first and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
I think the ayes have it, Mr. Bestfitch, and we will submit those names as presented. And congratulations to you all. Now that we're all spread out all over the place, so we're really getting ready to dive deep. So thank you for doing that. And the only other thing I wanted to do was to kind of go over the tool that we want to use. And it is from the Government Alliance on Race and Equity. But keep in mind, this is just a framework. None of the committees are bound by this. I hope to use it in some of the committees that I'm working with, but it's just the framework. And I think that was also sent out to you. So just keep in mind that nobody's telling you you have to do it this way. If your subcommittee finds another way of doing things, that's fine. But I wanted to share this because I think it will be really, really helpful. And I'm a firm believer in not recreating the wheel. I just don't think it's necessary. You don't have time. It's just, we're going to use this. So if you don't mind, I will take just a few minutes. I've gotten it down to one page and it's very quick. Mr. Bestfitch looked over it. He's like, this is pretty concise. You got it down to one page. So it won't take long. But the first thing is, what is the racial equity tool? Well, this tool is going to proactively seek to eliminate racial inequities and advance equity. It will identify clear goals, objectives, and measurable outcomes. And that's the important thing, is measuring our outcome. And it engages the community in the decision-making process, thus our public hearings. I mean, we're going to continue to involve the community, and you may even do that as your subcommittee, but that is one of the things. And also it develops a mechanism for implementation and evaluation. And, that's going to be imperative once we start gathering data. And number two is, why should the government use this racial equity tool? Well, we all know that it was local, state, federal, regional government that created these inequities. They're the ones that actually did it by redlining, voter suppression laws, and look at the COVID vaccine, the distribution of that vaccine. And it certainly wasn't anything intentional, but government helped create these inequities. So I think we should certainly play a role in trying to rectify it. That's number two. Number 3 is who should use it, the equity tool. And we're saying government staff, elected officials, and community-based organizations. When should we use the tool? Well, you should use it sooner rather than later, because we know that the longer you let inequities float around and exist in our communities, the harder it is to eradicate them or to try to address them or do something about it. So I am proud of the fact that Roanoke City and Mr. Kyle, in his wisdom and foresight, decided to do this and to address the inequities by, creating this board. So I think we're moving in the right direction. How does this tool work? And it's a set of simple questions, and you're going to find all of this in that toolkit. I just extracted some information so that I can, kind of bring it to you as succinctly as I possibly could. But there's a set of questions. Number 1, you'll get a proposal. What is the policy, the program, the practice, or the budget decision that's under consideration? So what we're going to do is look at what is it that we want to take a look at, and this is going to come out of your subcommittees. And then we're going to get the data. What does the data tell us? Community engagement. We're going to keep going back to community engagement because that is so relevant to what we're trying to do. And then we're going to analyze the data, and then we're going to strategize. And then the next thing would be implementation. And once you implement, then there has to be accountability, or what? We've done all of this for just to entertain ourselves. So we have to have some accountability. So with that, there are 6 steps that guide you through it. But I'm not going to go into that. And then the question number 6 is, what if you don't have enough time? And that was one of the things that was mentioned in the toolkit. And the reason we broke out into subcommittees, and we'll further break it down and add to the subcommittees so that we can cover more ground, and we can move, expeditiously to try to get some things resolved and move in a positive direction sooner. And the last thing was, how can we address some of the barriers from being successful? And I said, we don't know what those barriers are. We may not have any, and we will certainly address them as they are presented to us. But right now I'm looking forward to it. I don't see anything, but of course there will be some barriers, but we will challenge that as we come to them. So that's all I wanted to do as far as an update or an overview of the toolkit. And if you have time before your subcommittees meet, then you can actually go through it. I found it very, very helpful, and I hope that you will too. But if you don't, that's fine. You can use your own mechanism. And I think that's all as far as that's concerned. The public hearing, Bob, did you want to go over the public hearing that's number 4 on the agenda?
Sure. So you all know that a part of part of the ordinance, actually, and then a part of the adopted bylaws requires that the board conduct a public hearing every quarter. And so March will be your first opportunity to do so. At its core, at least initially, probably the primary purpose of the public hearing is so folks within the community can share with you all kind of their perspectives on where those inequities exist within our community, how best perhaps to advance on the priorities that are identified as a part of the interwoven equity, which align with the committees that you each have volunteered to serve on. So that will probably be a common theme every time we do one of those public hearings. And then I would think as we go along with the meetings, there will likely be some particular topic that you're wrestling with that you would like to get further input and comment from the community on. In this first meeting, you'll remember that Mr. Bestpitch had mentioned that this first charge with the public hearing on that kind of special topic is actually associated with Lee Plaza. Of course, as you all know, the monument, the Lee Monument, was removed from the plaza by the council several months ago and relocated, but it still leaves the overall name as Lee Plaza, which was part 2 of that effort that the council wanted to proceed with. And so the idea of this public hearing is to solicit from the community thoughts on alternative names for the plaza. What I would expect would occur then is you all would actually take those names under consideration at an upcoming meeting, talk about those, and ultimately formulate a recommendation to the council. Because, at your core, your task is really to recommend to council policy changes and other action changes. And this would really probably represent your first one that you would be making a recommendation. So those are the two principal purposes for the public hearing. We will, of course, be advertising that public hearing in the legally required ways, but we will also be putting out information through a bunch of different manners and channels to try to generate some interest in folks actually coming in and participating in that public hearing for both of those purposes. Most of our public hearings operate with kind of about 3 minutes per person in speaking. They're really an opportunity to hear from the public, not necessarily to engage in any presentations or dialogues or anything like that. It's really just to hear from them. So that's how we'll have it structured. It will be the same date as so it will actually be an actual meeting of the board. So you'll have your regular agenda as well as you'll have the public hearing. So it'll be a little bit more formal kind of meeting, but you'll still cover all of your regular business as well.
Thank you, Mr. Cowell. And so from that public hearing, you will get some other ideas and some other requests for us to address, and some things that we need to take a look at. And then as a board, we will decipher whether, what category it will fit in based on their concern or what they are asking us to look at. So whether it's going to go under, break the cycle. So we'll have to determine that as we move forward into the subcommittees with that. So, and certainly we want to hear from as many people as we possibly can. So if you have a social media account or an outlet or a way to reach some folks in the community, please encourage them to attend this public hearing, because that's where we're going to get our guidance from. So the more people we have involved in the conversation, the better we are going to serve our community, and the better we're going to do what it is that we have been established or appointed, I guess, to do, because we were actually appointed. So that was actually number 3, item C, and that's going to be it for me. But is there any questions from anybody or any comments or whatever you want to say at this point?
I have a quick question.
Yes, Ms.
So,
Holland.
Madam Chair, are we going to receive a link? I assume this is going to be posted pursuant to FOIA and all of that in a timely manner. Are we receiving a link to post on our social media? That are we supposed to share the link that we receive from, or is this a separate link that they go into a waiting room of some kind? I just want to make sure it was safe to share the link.
I think the information that's going to go out for the public hearing is public information, so you will be able to share that. Is that
yes,
correct,
we'll have,
Mr. Cowell?
just like we do with the city council meetings. We'll put the
Okay,
link.
yeah.
Now, what they'll do if someone wants to speak, though, what we typically will do is they will actually be required to contact, in this case, either Angie or Tiffany with that information, and then they will actually receive some additional information.
Okay.
That way, we don't have to worry about any kind of Zoom bombing or anything with that stuff. But as far as the meeting links, those will all be fine.
Okay.
And I think they will call in. They're not going to be Zooming like us. I think normally they will call in, or that's what has happened since COVID. That's been our standard practice.
Yeah, we'll either do it as a phone-based or we'll do it as a webinar, a Zoom webinar, one of those two options, most likely.
Thank you.
So that was a good question. Does anyone else have a question? Because we already said tonight would be fairly a quick meeting, because we've already done all of the work. We just need to now start working on building our subcommittees. But certainly if you have any questions, we don't have to rush through the meeting. I mean, we've only been on a little over 20 minutes. So are there any questions? I want to make sure we're all on the same page. No, I have done an excellent job then.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Mr. Bestfitch.
well, if I might, let me just share something else with the group that
Okay.
sort of percolated up earlier this week. I think probably a number of you are familiar with the Equal Justice Institute that was established down in Montgomery, Alabama. There are a number of things associated with that. And one of them is that communities can get signs similar to the highway signs that we see marking different events. And also they have created these big stone plinths to memorialize every lynching that happened in the United States, county by county or city by city. Uh, in October of 2019, actually, Brenda Hale, president of Roanoke Branch NAACP, had asked me to have lunch with her, and she ended up asking me if I would contact them to find out what needed to happen for us to get the plinth for the two lynchings that happened, a Mr. Smith and a Mr. Lavender here in Roanoke. I contacted them and I found out that even though their website says they recognize that Virginia has independent cities, because around the rest of the country, they're doing it county by county. So there may be, two or three towns or cities in the same county where lynchings occurred, but they're just one for each county. Well, on our plinth, it says Roanoke County. So I have asked them actually at least 3 different times now, can we get that changed? And if so, what do we need to do? And I've never gotten a reply to that question. But the bigger question is, how do we address what they want communities to do? Saying is they don't want to just send these out to communities around the country. They want to know that people in each community have done some work to raise awareness, to address equity and inequality in their community and so forth. So one of the things that's been going on for the last couple of years or so is something called the Change Academy. And it's basically a book discussion group. And the group is currently in the process of discussing Isabel Wilkinson's book, Caste, The Origins of Our Discontents. And on Monday evening's discussion, this came up. And I think that one of the things that we can start doing is asking Doug Jackson, who's our arts coordinator in the city of Roanoke, but also has this Book City Roanoke, so forth, that he does. It organizes around different books. And Marissa Blankenship with the city libraries are the 2 people who've been taking the lead on this discussion around caste. So if they could write up all the things that have been going on with the Change Academy, the fact that the libraries were able to bring Ibram Kendi here, and just a number of things, and who was involved. Obviously, for many years, the NAACP has been having events, usually around the Martin Luther King statue, and it's always a very mixed crowd. It's an integrated crowd. Same with the events at the SCLC, and also, of course, they do the Juneteenth celebration, which a lot of communities don't even know about Juneteenth. They don't pay any attention to Juneteenth. We've been celebrating it very prominently for years. Of course, we got rid of the Lee Monument. Points of Diversity has been doing a number of study circles on racism for quite a few years now. Bob, I'm trying to remember if it was 3 or 4 years that some churches got together and had this Lenten series where predominantly African American communities or congregations, and white congregations got together each week during the Lenten season. And then there was also an Advent series that folks from that same group. And so we have somebody who's been very involved with that who could write that up. What I'm suggesting is that we start putting all this together and send it to them and say, you keep saying, because what they keep saying is, we're not quite ready to tell you exactly what we want communities to do. We're still in the process of developing that. And actually, a couple of times they've said at the end of the year. Well, when they first said that, I thought they were talking about 2019. And then last year, I contacted them again in June, and they said, well, probably by the end of the year. So I thought they were talking about 2020. I realized the other day they never say which year. They just say the end of the year. So I'm not sure which year they have in mind. But I think if we can get people to work together, pull all this information and send it to them and say, we're still not sure. You haven't been able to be very specific about exactly what you want communities to do, but let us tell you what we have been doing in Roanoke, Virginia. And if that doesn't satisfy you, please tell us what will. because we have a lot of people in this community who are very concerned and are getting involved. And this group, the Equity Empowerment Advisory Board, is going to actually develop actions, implement some plans, evaluate them, see, hold people accountable for making changes. So if that's not what they want, then let them tell us what they do want. I just wanted to bring that up as a point of information since we did have a little time, Madam Chair. And if anybody else here knows of anything, I know Mr. Watson is on the board of the NAACP. Others have been involved in some of these different activities. So if there are other things that you think we can put into something like this to send to the Equal Justice Institute in Montgomery, Alabama, please be thinking about that and let us know.
Madam Chair.
Sure.
Peter
Go ahead,
Watson.
Mr. Watson.
Bill, let me tell you a couple things that I know and ask you a couple questions. Right around the time that you and Brenda were talking about this, I was in some conversations with a gentleman named Tim Isaacs. And in fact, I recommended he get in touch with you. I suspect if you don't recognize that name, he probably didn't. Tim is the director of the Center for the Teaching of the Rule of Law at.
Actually, his wife is my wife's cousin. So.
Okay, Phyllis. Okay. Tim, when he reached out to me because of my connection with NAACP, and I had talked to Brenda about it as well, he'd already done a fair amount of work with the EJI. And have you their, what should I call it? It's more than an application. It's about a 33-page document that suggests a path that communities should/must take to participate in the lynching program and the soil project.
No, I haven't seen a specific path like that. There was a very lengthy, I think they call it application indicating interest, and that's what I had filled out and sent to them, and like I said, followed up again this past June.
Okay.
But I can certainly look for that.
Well, and I've got a copy of it. I can send it. May be the same thing, but there's no question that what they were asking, and I suspect still are asking, is pretty detailed. And the reason Tim was talking to me was that the sense he got from the lady that he talked to down there was that in many situations where memorials are put up at the site of the lynchings, and in terms of deciding with this soil project, you take soil from those particular spots. One goes to the museum in Alabama, and the other goes to a location in the area where the murder happened, that would be the most appropriate place to keep it. For example, the Harrison Museum comes to mind. But he was under the impression that they were looking for a coalition of people to come to the table from a broader area than just a city or a county. And he ran up against that issue of them indicating that they thought it was Roanoke County rather than Roanoke City. And he had looked at it long enough to know that down there on the corner of Franklin and Mountain, or somewhere down there.
Yeah, Franklin and Mountain was one of them. The other one, the only thing that I've been able to find is that it happened somewhere on the banks of the Roanoke River. Exactly where along the river, as far as I know, no one can document exactly that point. Certainly find spots along the Roanoke River that would be appropriate to have a remembrance and memorialization of these people, and take the soil from there, take the soil from the corner of Mountain and Franklin, and participate in this project. So if you have something like that that you can email to me, that would be great.
Yeah, I will. And I'll try to get back to Tim too and see what progress he may have made. Another reason he reached out to me was he was under the impression, and I mentioned this to Brenda, who had said to me, this would be a great project for the NAACP to walk point on, is that in their literature, as I recall, they pretty much stipulate that no organization is to, quote, take the lead on this, that it has to be a coalition of equal participants from a variety of institutions, governmental, nonprofit, whatever, in the area.
Hey, Peter, I was going to say, I'm going to leave it at that because the overview is good and I appreciate the information,
Yep.
Mr. Bestfitch, but I don't want to get too far in the weeds on this because
No.
some of us we don't even know what you're talking about.
I
So
agree.
we'll just leave it at that. But thank you so much for that input. And Mr. Bestfitch, I don't, you were just giving us information. At first, I thought you were leading to a charge and I was going to try to figure out what category do we need to put this in, but you were just giving us information. So thank you for doing that.
Yes, and I just wanted to make that anybody else has information that would be relevant to please bring it forward. Thank you.
Thank you. And I think I don't have anything else. We do now. Item 4 is for reports of the board members. And certainly there's not anything right now, but this is where we will bring forth our reports from our subcommittees at the next meeting. So we'll leave that item there. And so we just wanted you to see it and get familiar with that item. So you'll be prepared in your subcommittees. And in your subcommittees, somebody's certainly gonna have to take the lead. So we're not gonna micromanage that. So we'll let you do that among yourselves in your subcommittees as to who will chair each subcommittee. But are there any other questions? Our next meeting, as Mr. Kyle stated, will be March 4th, and we'll get that information to you as far as the links and also the information about applying for the subcommittees and the I guess the link like Ms. Holland was talking about sharing on social media. So I don't have anything else. Is there anyone else that that has anything else or any other items that are still on the table that we have not addressed? No? Awesome. Well, I appreciate you taking the time to do this. It took us about half an hour, which is good. We don't have to have long meetings. I think this was pretty effective. We've gotten the ball rolling. We're going to start working on our subcommittees. And I just want to say thank you. And each of you have a good rest of your evening. This meeting adjourned at 7:05 p.m.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a
everybody
good
for being
evening.
here.
Y'all have a good evening. Y'all take care.
Thank
Good
you.
night.
Take care.
Good night.